right, as she said, I'm Terry Thomas. I'm a National Content Specialist with Heinemann. Thank you again for having us here this evening. I think you're going to be really excited about what you're going to hear for Lucy Calkins' units of study in opinion, argument, information, and narrative writing. If it seems like I'm talking fast, I am. I've got 30 minutes and I have a lot to tell you. 2 resources that you have in front of you. First is the overview. That's the thin piece that is on top. We're going to go through that first, and then we're going to go right into your specific grade level sampler, okay? So with that, let's just jump right in, and let's first talk about this big push for writing, and I want to bring something to light here. You're going to see all over it Common Core. I know Nebraska's not a Common Core state, but I'll tell you what. Call it Common Core, 21st century standards, national standards, state standards. They all are very similar. But really the takeaway point that I want you to take from that is that the rigor is there. It's way up there. They have raised the bar on us, what these kids are asked to do on these standardized tests. Couple of things that stand out as I go across the country and I look at the standards across the country, a couple of the glaring things are right at the top of the list. First of all, writing and reading hold equal weight. That's not something that we were used to doing. And I taught 1st, 4th, and 5th grade. If you're running short in a day, what did you usually let slide? Usually writing, okay? And they said, you know what, we can't. Reading and writing are reciprocal processes. And when you see what's happening today and what they're going to be doing with their writing in this workshop approach, it is going to make their comprehension skyrocket. I promise you that. The next thing, explicit writing instruction in 3 types, okay? Now more specific than what they've been in the past. Opinion argument, information, and narrative, okay? That's another thing that we weren't used to, especially in the lower grades, starting in kindergarten. That is what they're asked to do now, and we found out that, guess what? Not only can they do it, they love it. So you're going to see that in units of study. The next 3rd point, you're going to hear me say in a roundabout way numerous times in the next 30 minutes, planned and sequential learning progression. You know, if we were used to kind of letting writing slide, maybe you were like me, you got out of college and you were never really taught how to teach writing. That's where I stood. You have to have a progression. There has to be a building process. We're not going to take these kids from 0 to 100 in 3 months' time, okay? It has to start in kindergarten. It has to be that whole school approach that we get everybody on board, and each grade level stands on the shoulders of the previous grade in units of study. The next one, process approach, been there, done that, right? We're familiar with that, draft, revise, edit, publish. How many of you have done the Monday I pre-write, Tuesday I draft? You do that? That's what I used to do. It's good. They learn that process. That is important, but it is so much more than that. More than the process behind writing, what goes into an opinion argument piece? What does a narrative piece look like? How are they different? How are they the same? So that is still there, but the problem is when you do that one thing across the week, how many writing pieces do you have at the end of the week? 1. It's the other thing those standards tell us, that it has to be frequent and sustained writing practice that you see on the next one. So yes, we need those lengthy, sustained writing pieces that we come back to, that we revisit, that we perfect. But we also need to be writing every single day. It needs to be frequency. You learn to write by writing. And then writing across content areas, that goes without saying. But the beauty of this is, when you look at some of the things that are happening in units of study, you're going to say, oh, fantastic, I can use that in social studies. Great, I can use that in science. Because I know the other complaint, so much is asked of teachers, and you're like, really? Where am I going to fit in another hour for this in my day? But you can, and that's the beauty of it. It crosses over, it moves into other content areas. It makes more sense to our children when they see it that way, okay? So with that in mind, we turn to the expert in writing. How many of you, let's put it this way, how many of you are not familiar with Lucy Calkins? Okay, a few, that's okay. Lucy Calkins is an expert in this field. She has been doing this for 30 years. She works with teachers all over the world. She tweaks it, changes it, perfects it, depending on what she sees happening. And I think you know kids are very different even from 10 years ago, right? Very different. She's the founding director of Teachers College of the Reading and Writing Project in New York. Has anybody been to Teachers College? Raise your hand. I'm sorry, Reading and Writing Project, Teachers College? Yes. Now this is Teachers College. This is in Columbia, New York. Okay. Creator of the workshop approach along with Don Graves. She was his apprentice 30 years ago. She's created lots of children's literature. How many of you are familiar with the original units of study? Anybody? Okay, that was more general. You had a intermediate and a primary. This is more focused, more pinpointed. It is not a revision. It's new books. It has been perfected with what we're trying to do there. And then author of numerous professional books. But the point is, 30 years of expertise has gone into building units of study in opinion, information, and narrative writing. And this is what it looks like. Most of you have a box represented on your table. We had hoped to have one on every table, but there's a box floating around here somewhere that it'll turn up. But I would tell you, and you're going to hear me say this a couple of times, guys, more than a curriculum, this is PD in a box. If you want to become stronger at writing instruction, this will do it. What is it? It is a year-long curriculum. It is grade level specific. It has been field tested, so it originated from the original units of study that was more general, and then as they talked to people all over, literally all over the world, not just all over the country, they went back and they fine-tuned and really zeroed in, or what are the general standards as we look at every state across the country. Here's what I said earlier. It is a coherent, systemic, whole school approach. And I can't stress that enough. If we are to be successful, you guys are a large district, right? What's the key in being successful, of implementing something new in a very large district? Training, right? Okay? We need to get everybody on board. We need to have that whole school approach, and we will help you to do that. You need assessment that's very clear. That was another complaint about writing. Teachers would say, you know, writing seems to be, the assessment in writing can be a little subjective sometimes. And by that, do you ever have those teachers, you give a paper a C, and they come running into your room and say, that was beautiful, why'd you give it a C? That was an A. What they don't understand is, again, we're looking at the process writing, but now very specifically, we're looking at what did they do that makes it a narrative piece, or opinion argument piece, or an informational piece. There are things that are very specific to those types of writing. It says embedded professional development. Again, this is truly PD in a box, and you're going to see that in just a moment. So what does it look like? I thought the best way to show you, let's look at the end result. Let's look at the goal that we're trying to reach and what the standards are telling us we should see, okay? So here is kindergarten. Okay, your teachers, we're going to do this quickly. We only have 30 minutes. Think about this as we read it, critique it, be ready to share. First, you buy balloons, presents, and cards. Next, you make cards. It has to be nice. Then you blow up the balloon so it is round and shiny like the sun. Then you wrap up the presents like you are hiding them. Last, you drive to the party and have fun. This is kindergarten. This is the end of kindergarten. What did you see? As writing teachers, tell me quick, what did you see? Sequence, great. What else? Detail, word choice, transition words. You see some grammar and punctuation, although not correct, they are getting a grasp. They understand, okay, a period is important. I'm not placing it in exactly the right place, but they're getting that general understanding that that needs to be there in our writing. Fast forward to second grade. Now they are doing lab reports and science books. Look at what she's talking about. If we change the surface, carpet and no carpet, will it affect the distance the car travels? She uses words like hypothesis. Amazing. This is by second grade. Now fast forward to fifth grade. Here's where they need to be. Multi-page research reports that takes everything that I have learned from kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, and I have to implement it in fifth grade. So that's what you're going to see happening in units of study. There's kind of a repetition and a progression, which we're going to look at next. So what's going to happen is I learn A and K, okay? When I go to first grade, I'm going to see K1. When I go to second grade, I'm going to see K1, 2. Third, K1, 2, 3. And you get the picture. It keeps building and building layer after layer. Okay, but it wasn't till these rigorous standards came about that we had an understanding, wow, we have to start early. We have to do this incrementally or it's never going to happen, right? So that's another thing that they looked at when they were building units of study. So here's the progression. Grab your overview, if you would, and I know you're going to remember everything I said this evening, but just in the off chance that you don't, you've got the overview and you've got your grade level samplers that you can refer back to. For now, jump over, if you would, to the progression on page 9. Your progression is going to look a little bit different than mine, but it gives you the same idea. Let me show you, and you're not on the same page as me. Oh, fantastic. They sent you a different one. All right, 6. Go to page 6. Oops. Go up to page 6. All right. On page 6, there we go. You'll see a progression. You're looking at the progression for opinion and argument specifically. So I want you to see how it's going to build through the grade levels. So for example, kindergarten, it says persuasive writing and all kinds, using words to make a change. So they're going to start crafting a persuasive letter. Now kindergarten, they're more egocentric. It's all about them. It's going to start off very small. So their first persuasive letter is to the principal on why we need 5 more minutes of recess. Okay? First grade, we jump up and now we're writing reviews. Remember, this is all in that opinion argument vein. Now they're going to be asked to bring in their favorite collection. It can be anything, plastic figurines, baseball cards. They have to argue why theirs is the best. You'll see it starting to grow. Third grade, changing the world. Now they jump up, they take all these newfound abilities and they're going to take it for a larger cause, okay? So now it might be something like bullying or recycling, but you see it starts to broaden, it starts to grow, but yet it builds on the previous grade. Fourth grade, you see there are boxes and bullets. We're reinforcing all the strategies that they have learned thus far so that they will be ready and well prepared when they have to take those standardized tests. They have things, when you see boxes and bullets, what does that mean to you? Literally, boxes and bullets. What would you picture? What are they doing? Right, strategies. So it's a box, and they'll use their hand a lot in units of study. So I have my topic, and then I have my bullets of the points that I want to make. Okay? They have things called boot camps. What do you think of when you think of a boot camp? What is it? Hard-hitting, fast, really very specific. So the boot camps are going to hit things like grammar, spelling. All of those things come into play. Now, we always get the question, they ask Lucy, okay, great, so can we use this for my grammar and spelling? She would tell you, honestly, no. Is it there? Yes. Is it important in building your writing piece? Yes. However, if you want a full-fledged grammar and spelling, you need to add something else to support it. But you will see it in there in context when it makes sense, okay? Then we get up into 5th grade, and now that research is critical. We've been traveling up, and by 5th grade, they have to take everything that they've built. And what's one key word that's different? If you're writing a fantasy piece as opposed to an informational piece, what do you need before you write an information piece? Research, right, starts in kindergarten, in units of study. So now, they've learned how to research. I know I can go to the computer, I can go to magazines, books. Is everything I read on the computer fact? True? No, they learn how to filter through that as well. This all begins in kindergarten. But now by 5th grade, it might be, should we have chocolate milk in the cafeteria? Simple, yet difficult. Think about that. So you're going to have some that say, well, no, it's sugar, it's chocolate, it's going to hype them up. I don't think that's a good idea. Others would say, but you know what? It's milk, it's vitamins. So yeah, it is good. Whatever your opinion is, should it not be in the cafeteria? So they really make them think around things. They might be asked to write an opinion piece where They have to show both sides, but you can't let your reader know what side you're on. Or maybe they have to be very clear on what side they're on. So it really looks at all dynamics of that persuasive and opinion writing. Then you'll see the same thing happens for narrative, and then the same thing again for information. So it is truly a progression, a building process. So they are well prepared for what they're going to have to do by 4th grade testing. Okay? So what does it look like? The units of study, you can put your, set your overview down. We're going to get into our sampler in just a moment. Some of you, as I said, have the boxes at your desk. Looks like this. This is part of your professional development. We will help you, train you, make sure that you're comfortable with that workshop approach. Although you are using the workshop approach, correct? So you're somewhat familiar, okay? So what you're going to find are 4 spiral-bound units that look like this, okay? 4 units in each grade. Every grade level will have 1 on opinion argument, 1 on narrative, 1 on information. The 4th one is going to vary from grade to grade depending upon the standards and expectations of that grade level. So maybe you have 2 of narrative for a particular grade. So it really looks at where the focus is as far as the standards are concerned for that grade level and where they need to be. So you'll have an overlap there. The next thing you see, the units are about 6 to 8 weeks long. Remember I said in the beginning it is a year-long curriculum. If you do the math, not going to ask you to do that now. I know you're tired. It's after hours here. But not quite a full year. So what do we do with that? If-then book, 5 to 7 alternate and additional units. If you have the box in front of you and you want to pull it out, I would tell you as you're critiquing and you're looking through, this is one of your go-to books. It will explain a lot for you, the if-then. What the if-then curriculum is, as I said, additional units. This is a very flexible piece. It says for differentiated instruction, but that's the beauty of writing. They're only going to write to their ability level. It differentiates all on their own. And it's very clear-cut. With reading, you can't see the processing going on in their little brains, but writing, it's concrete. I see very clearly what they're doing, what they're not doing, and exactly where I need to go next. So it's ongoing to really support these kids and boost them quickly. The other thing that you're going to see, the gradual release of responsibility, basically, I do it, we do it, you do it, although a lot of times it's I do it, we do it, we do it, we do it, and finally they do it. So, but it's really just showing demonstration, working with them, and then giving them that independence to go off and write. So it looks like this. Some of the things you're going to see, and I want to touch on this, conferring scenarios. A lot of teachers think, rightly so, that conferring means, oh, you sit down with your red pen and you correct them. No. Conferring is when you sit down with that student and say, ah, I saw you wrote blah, blah, blah. Why did you say that? What are some other words you think you could use that would make me see a better picture in my head? So you're talking to them. You're not telling them anything. You're chatting with them. What were you thinking when you wrote this? You're letting them come upon that answer. Isn't it much better when you figure it out yourself than somebody standing here and telling you what it is? That's exactly what's happening. So it's going to give you what is conferring. What should I be doing when I walk around in that 40-minute block after the mini lesson? What am I saying? What am I looking for? It's going to tell you all of that. And then very specific to the writing piece. Okay, so what specifically am I looking at for narrative? What is it for opinion and argument or information? It will lay everything out for you. Writing pathways. Let's talk about the assessment piece. So also in your box, you are going to have a writing pathways. That is your assessment piece. The nice thing about this assessment, and if you like, you can see a view of this in the very back. It's going to be in the back of your sampler, but it's also in the very back of your overview, and you'll see specific examples of assessment. Everything. It's the learning progressions, the benchmarks. It's the checklist not only for the teacher, but for the student. I love that because you give a checklist to the student. What are you doing? You're giving them that agency. You're responsible for this. Okay, you want to do a beautiful narrative piece? Here's your checklist. Here's what I'm looking for. They write their piece. They go back to it. They double check themselves before they turn it into the teacher. Think about what that is going to do to build their understanding and to build their writing. You have student writing samples. Isn't it nice to have that goal? What do you mean? What is it supposed to look like? It's good for the teachers. It's good for the students. You'll have those student writing samples. The benchmark, the on-demand writing prompts. Love those. So what's going to happen there is before I start, and this is a great piece to document their progress and put in their folders. So I'm going to pull out, this is the art of information writing, okay? So we're going to start, they're going to come in and I'm going to say, okay, everybody, sit down, start writing. Write everything you know. Write a piece using everything that you know about information writing. Go. What do you think that looks like? Not too pretty. But then, okay, you take that, you pull it back, you hold on to it, goes in their file. That's the on-demand prompts. Then you go through the entire unit. Then you give it back to them. Wow. Look what you did at the beginning of this unit. Look how far you've come at the end, and that is a marker for you to show their progress. But that is very, very telling. And I will tell you, with this system, Lucy Calkins will tell you, she says it every time she speaks, if you don't see a dramatic difference in 2 weeks' time, something's not right. You will see huge differences with the format and the structure. And I'll tell you, it's half the battle since you already know that workshop approach. It's just going to help you to dig deeper, to give you that framework, what happens in the mini lesson, what happens in the conferring, what happens in the share in the small group. It even tells you setting up your classrooms, everything you need for that extra support. Okay? ELL support. ELL is an issue. There is a whole section on the in that if-then book. If you want to know specifics about what about ELL, it will show you the supports that are in there specifically for ELL. And then your resource for teaching writing, CD-ROM, all of those assessments, anchor charts, everything you need, all of your resources are on this CD-ROM, right there at your fingertips. In addition to that, we have websites that are free that you get on there. You can see videos. You can see an entire 50, 60-minute workshop. So, okay, now I understand what it looks like and what's happening. So you have that model to start with. You can look at every grade level. You can look at opinion and argument, but everything's there to support you. There is a trade book pack. This is kind of an add-on, but I would tell you what, you want to get it all together. There are, the number of books varies depending upon the grade level. They are very, very specific. Can you use your own books? Most definitely. You'll become better aware and more in tune of the kind of books you can use. But for example, I might pull out the book on sharks, and it's very specifically talking about imagery. Okay? What did that writer do to make me get that picture in my mind? We might revisit that book on sharks another unit later, but now we're looking at something else that's more specific. So we will rotate and we will come back to those. The other thing that Lucy says is sometimes it's the structure itself that's almost more important than what's in it. It's that routine. Those kids know what to expect. I know what happens when I go sit down on the rug for that mini lesson. I know when it's time to talk, when it's time to not talk. I know what happens when I go back to my desk. Okay? So, the structure of a workshop. Let's go ahead and open up your grade level sampler. Now, it doesn't matter what grade level you are looking at. Everybody turn to page 14 and you will be at the beginning of one session. You might have to turn a few pages to see what I'm talking about because it varies from grades to grade and the length. But open up to page 14. What's the first thing you would say as you look across these pages? Wow, there's a lot of words writing. Okay, here's the thing. Lucy said, I want this to work for everybody. She's giving you the methods and the moves that you can lean heavily on this if you need to, or just use it as a framework to then create your own units. So basically think of it as much or as little as you need. If you are more, you're well-versed at that workshop approach, you're not going to read everything in here. You're going to get the gist of it and you're going to move on. If you are fresh out of the classroom and fresh into the classroom, I might lean very heavily on this and kind of want to read through it before I get in. So let's quickly go through a lesson. Notice I'm holding a 4th grade. My session 1 is close reading to generate ideas about a text. Tying in that reading. Reading and writing are reciprocal processes. I learned to read like a writer and write like a reader. Think what that does to my comprehension. You see the prelude in this session. It's going to help you to understand the why and the rationale behind this particular lesson to teach information or whichever one we're in here. Okay? Very specific. Then you turn the page, start wherever your mini lesson is. How long is a mini lesson, guys? 10, 15 minutes. Very, very quick. I think that's the hardest thing for teachers to hang on to in the workshop approach. You're only doing that hard-hitting teaching for 10 to 15 minutes. The rest of the hour, they are writing, they're talking, you're conferring, you're working with them and moving around the room and facilitating. That is so powerful because they're doing the writing, okay? Turn your page and you'll see, as you read through, we don't have time, but she's modeling the behavior. She's telling you, I'm thinking, and she's modeling what she's thinking. This is what they need to see so they understand where they need to go. Keep flipping. You'll see conferring in small group. That's the off you go. They go into their groups. They start working and talking with their partners. Then you get to a mid-workshop. We might have to go back and hit that mini lesson again because they just weren't with me. Maybe, wow, they're on it. Let's push them further. It's another very, very quick mini lesson. And then the share. The share is hugely important. A lot of teachers say, I don't have time, I'm going to let that go. That share is huge. They get to talk. It's another way. They think, they watch, they listen, they hear, they see, they speak. Okay? And then you keep flipping, and we end with homework depending on the grade level. Homework is going to start in the intermediate grades, not in the lower grades. Okay? So that is your model. We would help you with everything you need. Okay, tell me about that mini lesson. Specifically, what's happening. What happens in conferring in small group? That's the key, guys. Training you up front so you have a comfort level and you're off and running. Professional development, as I told you, this is PD in a box. I promise you, if nothing else, you will come out of this saying, wow, I really get it. I'm so much stronger at teaching writing. And isn't that the best thing we can give our kids? You can have the best book, the best program in the world, and it's only as good as the person's hands you put it in. So this really helps to support you to be an expert teacher. That's the best thing we can give our kids. And then finally, we started with a student piece of work, and we're going to end that way. So this little guy, okay, cut him some slack. It's not the greatest, but I was on a bike store, and my dad was buying me and my brother a bike, and I was so happy my hands were shaking. And I said, thank you, Dad. And when I got home, I practiced my bike so I would be good at riding my bike. I was nervous, and I said I could do it to myself. And then I said, it's wiggly. And then my mom said, practice more. And then I start biking, and I was still wiggly, and my hand was on the handle, and my feet was on my bike, and then I feel better. And then I came to the center of my house, and I yelled, I did it! And my mom and dad were proud of me, and then my dad said, if you practice more, you can ride your bike at outside. And weeks I practiced my bike. Finally, I can ride bike at outside, and I said, whee! And that's the whole point. Use units of study, and you will say, whee! My kids can write. I feel stronger at teaching writing. It's that structure, it's that power of that workshop approach. They spend the majority of the time writing. That's how they're going to learn to be better writers. And it's their choice. Everything in units of study is not, okay, write about this day in summer or whatever, that we give them those specific prompts. No, write about something special to you. What happened to you this morning? What did that mean to you? Everything they write is what they want to write about. That's the most powerful writing that those children are going to produce. So I hope you liked what you've seen. We've kind of glossed over a whole lot of things, and now we have 30 minutes that I can walk around and answer some very specific questions or maybe show you within the materials. I would tell you your two go-to pieces would be, and I skipped over a guide to the Common Core Writing Workshop. Look at that piece in the system, tells you everything you want to know. That would be your go-to piece that you start with, and then the second one would be that if-then curriculum. It's going to tell you what all the lessons are all about as well. Okay? So, right on time. I think I've got 30 seconds to spare.